Welcome back everybody from around the world. We've now officially crossed the halfway line here in the round of 16 at the opening week as we make our mark into the second half of games. Joining me on the couch again and full time will be Tilo and In Control. And now Todd's joined us back on. And we start to look forward to our next game now, which is going to be Captain America, who takes to the stage here to go up against Rain. Where should we start here, Todd? Let's look at Rain a little bit. Rain comes into this surely as the favorite between the two of them.
I'm not sure. On paper, this is Terran offense against Protoss defense, but both players have definitely been mixing it up a little bit more. So there are definitely two players that we haven't seen as much as of late. So there's this big question mark on how well they are doing exactly right now, and I feel like in particular, the first map and the first few games that they're going to play together definitely are going to unveil how well they're doing right now.
I mean, you look at the top half of the bracket now. We have a lot of very good players up there, obviously, with now the 4 completed.
Live versus Innovation in the next round.
Incredible. It's such a great series everyone's going to be looking forward to. But when you look at the bracket and focus on it now going into the second half, is that there's still a lot of big names down here. Arguably, a lot of people are saying that the top half is stronger. But as you can see, where Rain and Polt currently are, Parting and SOS, Hydra and Dream, and Maru versus Rogue, there's still some pretty large and scary names down there, Tilo.
Yeah, I don't think the lower bracket is going to be any less fun. And I like how we have kind of the opposites here. With Rain and Polt, you say offensive and defensive, and then Innovation versus Life is kind of chaos versus order. So I think we're going to have some really cool matches because it's conflicting styles, but on a very high level.
And I mean, how could it be less fun? Maybe we get like 4 3-0s. That'd be the only way.
Yeah, I did. My eyebrow did raise when you said this is going to be much less fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be better even then.
Okay, now you've changed your opinion.
Yeah, I changed my opinion.
Wow.
Oh wow!
I think
you disagree with yourself.
I think that it's very important as a person to be able to disagree with yourself.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. No, I can see why people are saying that though. Like the big heavy hitter names are at the top, but I do feel like what's so cool about BlizzCon is we're seeing some of the kind of big names, but in a different way down there. Maru is one of the more infamous Terran players that people have been talking about for a while. Dream is down there as well, kind of looking to prove himself. Rogue comes in as one of the guys that is most challenged. A lot of people look at him and they're like, it could have been Rogue or it could have been somebody else. So we'll see. Rogue's going to show us.
I mean, we'll definitely continue on with our discussions on these two players because I would love to hear what you say, especially you, Todd. But the two players did have, of course, a lot to say themselves. Let's take a look at what Rain and Polt have to give us.
My name is Polt, playing for CM Storm.
MII 프로토스 정윤종입니다.
In 2015, I won WCS Premier League.
이번 시즌에 GSL 시즌2에서 우승을 했습니다.
I achieved the only player who won 3 WCS Premier Leagues in the world. Unfortunately, it was the only trophy I got, but right here, I got another chance to get another trophy.
해외에서 생활하시지만 국내에서 하는 한국 선수들이랑 실력 차이가 그렇게 크다고 안 느껴요. 그냥 잘한다고 느껴가지고 VOD가 생각보다 많이 없어가지고 걱정이 많이 돼요.
I think Rain is pretty good. Like better than most of the players right here at BlizzCon, I guess.
최성훈 선수는 캡틴 아메리카로 별명이 있잖아요. 좀 멋있는 것 같은데.
To be honest, 노잼종. The Rain's nickname means like his game's not too much fun.
저는 재밌게 항상 하려고 하는데 상대방 분이 어떻게 하냐에 따라서 좀 갈리는 것 같아요. 성훈이 형 경기 좀 재밌게 했으면 좋겠어요.
I don't know if Rain can pull out any funny games, but it doesn't matter because my games are always fun.
제가 게임 내용이 좀 그냥 수비적이고 가만히 있어가지고 그런 별명이 붙여지게 됐어요. 재미없게 한다고 게임을.
Protoss gets ahead when they defend everything, and like that means he just defends everything. I think it's a good nickname. Of course, mine is much better than 노잼종.
대회장에서 많이 오다 가다 보기도 하고 경기도 많이 했었는데 이번에 제가 이기고 나서 친해졌으면 좋겠어요. 제가 이기고.
Friendship, I like it. You got it, Rain. If I win.
All right, welcome back, everybody. There was Polt and Rain, and I think one thing that stands out to me a lot when watching Polt play is we count him out a lot, quite a lot actually. In many different tournaments, we say, Polt, he can't keep up with these guys, but he has that tendency to be able to, Todd, and multiple times in the past, he's been able to beat the Kesper Pro here and there, and he's quite often be able to do that.
Absolutely, and that's a huge part of why I don't want to count him out here this time.
Yeah.
You know, even though he threw his jacket at us here at the end of the video, Polt is one of those guys that if you somehow make the mistake of forgetting who he is and how good he is, he will remind you in this kind of series by playing amazing, dropping all over the place, sniping a bunch of Nexuses. That's his specialty. That's his hobby.
Yeah, I don't want to be blasphemous, but he kind of is like a mini MVP. Because he also was one of the guys that after he dropped off a little bit, people were saying, he's not good anymore. But then he kept winning games out of nowhere again and again. And Polt, maybe not quite on the level of that, but still the same type of player.
He just gets kind of discounted. I think it's because he left Korea and has been kind of beating up on foreign players. But it's like every time we see these matchups, we're always like, Polt against Rain here doesn't stand a chance. But I want to go back to something Sean said that I really like, actually, and that is that Rain is, I agree with Todd, he is still kind of the stout defender, the stable Protoss, but he's been having success with being a little bit different. He's mixed in some aggression as well, and that's really, really good.
But
I feel like
before the 30th minute.
Yeah, it's pre-30-minute no-rush moments we're seeing from him now. But against Polt is kind of in the line of like your innovation where he's going to capitalize on your mistakes. All of a sudden you're moving out, well, that's when the 2 medevacs land in your base. And all of a sudden, Polt never has his army together. It's always in like 3 fragment parts. And I feel like the aggressive Protosses are some of the ones that have the toughest time with him.
Do you think that the pressure between the two of them may be more so on Polt? Thinking of it from a couple of ways here, Polt has a lot of fans. He's in America. He's Captain America. And I'm sure that when he gets to BlizzCon, there's going to be a lot of people hoping he can make it there.
If he gets to BlizzCon.
If he gets there.
Yeah.
And obviously he wants to have the fans cheer for him. And he needs to deliver right now against a player that is not bad. He's considered one of the best Protoss players we've seen in StarCraft 2. You think that Polt feels that pressure?
I think so, yeah, maybe so. The thing is, once the game starts, that doesn't matter anymore, but maybe you have a good point and it's really helped his preparation. Maybe he was thinking, I mean, this is my home turf, we're going to be playing here, and I really want to make it to BlizzCon, play in front of all those fans, so maybe he's prepared really hard with that in mind. Usually also Polt he's never the kind of guy that shows up to a tournament and then gives us a little boy interview where he's like, well, you know what, I've not been practicing at all. Yeah.
Here's Moonlight Madness. We're seeing this again here. It's kind of a weird map in the map pool. A lot of times it gets vetoed out, but one of the things we talked about is a lot of these Korean players were not playing on some of these maps, and so maybe they're feeling a little bit comfortable with the wildcard maps. And
that was a 40-40 score between Protoss and Tiran on this map, I think.
Perfectly even. Look at that. I like the way this is shaping up, though. And to your point, too, Todd, I think Polt actually looked at this first-round opponent and was like, okay, of those 16 guys, this is actually pretty okay for me. Like, Rain's not going to come out with super crazy wild stuff. You're expecting robo openings, fast expand. There will be some oracles, but that's, of course, because he plays Protoss. Otherwise, Polt should know what he's about to face.
In some of his last tournaments, I remember Polt saying that he minded a lot more to face Zergs than Protoss. I think. I'm pretty sure he was demanding to try and face Protoss, but it didn't happen as much as he wanted to. So now he gets that opportunity to remind us of how good he can be in the matchup.
And this is what we're really expecting here, Teal, is super solid, super defensive, super, standardized play coming out from Rain, and just Polt looking for opportunities, weaknesses, holes, areas to get his medevacs in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Polt, I think he would always prefer to be the active player because that's where he shines, and Rain is going to give him the perfect opportunity for that. Rain, on the other hand, knows that and going to have the Blink Stalkers always in the correct position, so it'll really come down to micro, I think. Mostly.
How creative are they going to get?
Yeah, what's the creativity level coming into this?
I don't think it's
How many Telos?
How many Telos out of 10?
I think there's few people who can get more than 3 out of 10 Telos.
Like a Cats, maybe.
I don't have any comment for that.
Interesting. Interesting. I like it.
You know that Cats does consider himself more creative than you?
I think there's a lot of people that have an American bias and think builds that he made, that I made, are his builds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah?
And also there's just builds, you have to be creative, but the builds actually have to be good. You know?
Okay.
Oh.
Fair enough.
Are you saying they have no execution? The execution is not good enough from them, or the build?
I like this. Maybe in Legacy of the Void, we guys can have you do
I
a
hope you are
creative
excited
off.
for Legacy of the Void.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the creative of. Like, who can be the smartest guy? at the start
like
of
it.
Legacy.
I'm pretty sure you have an edge.
There's
on that,
few people who have a doctor title in StarCraft.
right? I only know of
Oh
one.
my god.
I only know of one. Let's take a look at the predictions then, as we do have, of course, which way these guys have gone.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Todd,
we've got
again.
Tilo.
Todd, let's talk about predictions a little bit because we spent a lot of time talking about my
actually,
predictions in Poland.
can we reset the scoreboard for prediction and start over? Can I get another chance?
1 out of 4 or 5
Yeah.
now, which is a little bit
It's
disappointing.
not my fault. I keep on predicting what
Whose fault
Artosis is
How is it
predicting
someone
without
else's
knowing.
fault? It's
Artosis.
There's always somebody else, isn't
There's
there?
always
Todd's
someone
blaming
else.
Artosis, and on this one, I might have to agree with him. I think it does come down to it's Artosis'
But
fault. Yeah.
before we get into the game, because I can see behind me, the players are almost ready. You've chosen Polt. Explain to us in a sentence or two why Polt's about to beat Rain.
Well, I mean, we said it before because Polt is always a guy you say, he's not that good anymore, he's not going to win. But he's in America. Here, he has the advantage of not being jet-lagged as much, and I think he's just kind of stands out. Also, I know this is one of the few matches where I can distinguish myself and get a point because
There you go.
everybody else is going to be
you're
wrong.
starting to
So
abuse
I'm
the
doing the
system.
meta game.
The metagame abuse.
Very creative.
You have to risk a little bit to
Cats
win
wouldn't
this
have done
game.
That's exactly right, man.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. It's time to head to our next game. Remember to join us on social media. As always, it is hashtag WCS. It's kind of difficult to mess that out for me, and it should be also for you. Let's jump into game as we're about to begin Rain versus Polt.
Can Captain America triumph over the Turtle Toss? Roddy, we know Polt's good at sniping next eye, but has he been in form recently is a big question.
Yeah, and I mean, there's all the right reasons to ask that big question, because if you look at, for instance, the last 10 players that both these guys went up to, you look at Rain's history, you know, he played 10 Terrans in the last 2.5, 3 months, 7 or 8 of them have been Korean. If you look at Polt, to find just 10 TVPs, you gotta go back 5, 6 months, and only one of them was against a Korean Protoss hero, which he did end up losing. And that's why also Rain mentioned it in his interview. He's like, I'm actually a little bit worried because I couldn't find any VODs. Well, Rain, let me just give it to you. That's not your fault. There just aren't any of this year. Polt hasn't been playing against Protosses like Rain in forever, and I think just because of that, I'm already leaning towards Rain.
Yeah, and I agreed for the exact same reason. We've seen a lot of strength out of our Korean Protoss in this match, but can this man do it again? Can he upset, as he seems to always be able to? In the northeast position of Moonlight Madness, we have CM Storm's Polt. Man with a Marauder. A lot of Marauders.
In general, yes, Marauders are good against Nexus. They do extra damage, right, Nate? Over here on the left bottom side of Moonlight Madness, probably a map that this man is a little bit unfamiliar with, but he's not unfamiliar with playing Protoss. It is Rain. Quite arguably the best Protoss player in StarCraft 2 history.
You might be the worst person to ask that question about,
That's
Kev.
true. I am a little bit of a fanboy.
I know you're a Rain fanboy. It's okay. It's
But
okay.
for all the right reasons, though. I mean, this guy does deserve all the love that he's been getting over the years. This year hasn't really been the year of Rain, and that's very weird to say because he did finally get his first GSL championship, which he also mentioned, and that was great, and he looked untouchable back then. But right after that, it's been a little quiet, and most recently we had the pleasure of casting a couple of Rain games at DreamHack Stockholm, and you know, yeah, it was decent, but it wasn't the invincible Rain that we've seen in the past. But I do believe that for a tournament like this, the last Heart of the Swarm tournament, we're gonna see Rain, you know, just shine one more time in all his glory.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he can bring to the table. One of those players that, you know, you mentioned the GSL performance, but we talk about guys like Innovation who were also on foreign teams for time being, but they went back to the Kesper regiment to bring themselves back up to that high skill level. Rain has managed to stay pretty much on top of his game despite playing on a non-Korean team. Do you think that impacts like any of his preparation for this tournament?
I'm not sure, but I mean, he's still spending most of his time in Korea, and Rain doesn't seem like the guy that has a whole lot of beef with other players. You know, he's just way too nice.
He's pretty chill.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that most of the guys that he practiced with in the past, if Rain wants to practice with them, you don't turn down practice with Rain. You know, Rain turns you down. It's not the other way around. So.
Rain asks you out, you say yes.
Yes.
So Polt's going to open up with a Reaper. Went for a 13 supply gas. Not the fastest one possible. Wants to keep his SCV production up this game. For Moonlight Madness, we talk about the things that make Polt good. It's being in multiple places at once with medevacs. You asked me right before the series started, we saw that the bridgehead got vetoed by Polt. And my initial thought was there's not a lot of airspace on that map. Moonlight Madness has a ton of dead space in the air where you can leave medevacs so that he can do this mass drop style, which he's pretty much famous for.
Yep, Polt is not the type of guy to sit back and wait for he eventually goes to something. He also doesn't pull SCVs a whole lot, definitely not on 2 bases. Polt loves to just go up to 3 bases, not be behind, and then the moment when he can work with 4 to 6 to sometimes even 8 medevacs, you know, that's where Polt shines. That's where Polt can create chaos, and he said it in the past in interviews as well. I believe, you know, if it passes the 25-minute mark in the game, I believe that I'm the best player in the world. Now, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with that. He has definitely shown us some magical things in the past. Polt thrives through chaos, while Rain likes to defend.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how Rain goes about doing it. Last year, when I think about Polt's performance in WCS overall, he made it to BlizzCon. He played on the big stage. In Classic, had a phenomenal way of dealing with his drop-heavy style. He played very defensively with Storm. He didn't pull any punches. He kept a smaller main army because he knows Polt doesn't like those big head-on fights. So whether Rain tries to play the standard Protoss defensive style or, you know, make things a little bit cheeky is going to be very important for his chances at holding off the mass aggression.
Yeah, it's going to be a one-gate Stargate, or excuse me, one-gate Nexus into Stargate for now. That is one of Rain's favorite openings in this matchup. It's either this or the Robo. Sometimes he proxies a Stargate though, even over his second pylon. I went through a couple of his games, but this is, you know, 50% of the time it's this, and the other 50% or 40%, let's say, it's one-gate Nexus into a robotics facility. I do like that you brought up that series last year, because last year we were in a very similar scenario for Polt. He went up against Classic, you know, we went through it well. Well, it's actually Phoenix opening. That might have to do with all the dead airspace, but we can talk about that later. But, you know, we thought Polt, you know, yeah, he's great, but he can't deal with guys like Classic. He went down 0-2. We kind of said, like, well, this is what we expected, right? Then he brought it back into 2-2, and suddenly Polt was playing like a man on fire, and he looked as good as he's ever been, and he was very close to taking the entire series. And I really felt that Classic had to bring out his most special build, which was the Phoenix charge slot back then in Game 5, to topple Polt. So
it was madness.
Yep, so maybe Polt can once again, you know, just positively surprise us and really at least make this series go to distance.
And in this series already, in this first game, Polt's done a couple of interesting things. He immediately knocked down the back rocks in his own base, but at the same time, Polt has opted for a slightly delayed second barracks, but he gets it before he has enough to afford both extra racks so that he can do this quick medevac drop with the mine. And he's just trying to be a little bit all over the place, and I think this Phoenix opening is actually a phenomenal response to this because he doesn't have the normal amount of forces you'd have with a mine drop. So as long as Rain reacts in time, he should be able to graviton lift that mine before it burrows.
Yep, this one mine shouldn't be able to achieve a whole lot over here. Polt's going to try to find the right angle, but most likely Rain with Photon Overcharge, with 2 Phoenixes, you know, just work on the medevac, lift up the mine, kill the mine. But, you know, losing 1 mine and 1 medevac is not the end of the world. Then at least you know you're playing against Phoenixes, and that is already very, very important information to have as a Terran player, because it prevents you from making a horrible move out later on.
Yep, and there's the medevac. It comes in, the mine tries to burrow, but not in time. Polt will lose this medevac, and Rain, you know, I like it. The thing is, Polt is not necessarily a stranger to bio openings, but Rain would still be able to defend a small marine poke with this either way.
There is a missile turret there, and a missile turret doesn't kill a Phoenix in 1 shot, but it can do a lot of damage, especially because Phoenixes, they clump up, they stick together like true Protosses, but that also means that mines will often splash over all 3 units at once. 1 lift being used there, and he doesn't get
2
cancelled.
mines burrowed! Yeah, hit 2 of the Phoenix,
God,
very low in health. 3rd shot picks off 1 of the Phoenix, so 3 SCVs
That's
for
great.
Phoenix, and a lot of hit points on these bad boys that can't be repaired.
Yep, wow, that's actually a great start over there for Polt. You're not supposed to lose Phoenixes in this phase in the game. Didn't really end up losing a whole lot of workers, did a lot of real damage, like you said. So Nate, you're a Terran player. If you realize you're playing against Phoenixes and it's not just 1 or 2 Phoenix who chase away medevacs, but it's multiple Phoenixes, what do you do right now?
I mean, looking at what Polt has, he's actually in a pretty... He was... You know, if he had pushed out as soon as that Phoenix attack had been pushed, and now he will step out, I think this is really smart because if your opponent invests into this Stargate tech, it's highly likely that the robotics facility is delayed. And if they're going straight into Colossi, they definitely don't have any upgrades. So Polt's +1 attack that's coming in, his stim and his medevacs, tops there should be a Colossus, and he'll get there. There'll be a Colossus about to pop, and this gives him some opportunity to try to micro around it and get some extra damage done.
The only thing I always feel, though, which is very risky when you play against Phoenix, is that as a Terran, when you attack, you have to be damn sure that your attack is good and that it's strong, because you cannot run away from Phoenixes.
Yes.
They are too fast, they'll lift up your units, they'll kill the medevacs. You know, there is no retreating. So I kind of feel you should make 1, maybe attack like this to test the waters, and the next attack kind of has to be game-ending. Double starport, maybe mass Viking, something among those lines. But against Phoenix Colossus, you don't want to throw small armies over and over again, because everything you throw at them, you'll lose.
Yeah, and the thing is, Polt loves his Marauders, but in this little push, he has just enough Marauders that they could all be Graviton beamed by the Phoenix as well. And then the Colossus can do work on these Marines.
Yep. Polt scans the army, he looks at it, and he decides to retreat. And I love it. I think this is
very smart.
Very good call by Polt.
Yeah, attacking a 2-base Protoss that has Colossi out and those Phoenix, like you said, there's no retreating. You don't want to take that risk.
Nope. So one little Marine is going to prevent this Nexus from going down for at least a couple seconds. Maybe could have scanned that Observer there. Some Terrans are always on top of that. And Polt sometimes as well, but maybe he didn't have the energy. But he's going to have 3 orbitals real soon. He has to be careful though. He's been running around with his army for a while, which means he has a lot of forces at home. I don't want Polt to just commit to an attack right now, lose a bunch of units, and then having to wait forever to rebuild that army.
And just look at a couple of the things that Rain has done in this game respecting Polt. If we look at the northwest area of his natural expansion, he's got already a couple photon cannons. He's prepared to deal with a drop if it comes in. That's just a little bit extra that allows him to help defend those drops in the mid-game stage.
I mean, there's a reason why we always compliment Rain on his defensive style. In this game, he's definitely not cutting any corners. The Observer is going to spot that Polt's going up to 3 bases as well. I would really love to see a second starboard by now, Nate, because I kind of feel the best thing for Polt is just to mine as much as he possibly can from these 3 orbitals, even though these first Zealots are going to be a little bit annoying. That missile turret will most likely get cancelled, which also allows the Phoenixes to eventually swing in and pick up a couple of SCVs. But I think a double starport, mass Viking SCV pool and just right-click on the Colossus with your Vikings, kind of think that's the best call for Polt.
Yep, and that's the thing, though, that makes it really weird is what we know Polt for, what he really does. And he's going for the Armory, which says to me, we're going to see the +2 attack. So he's not looking to hit any sort of fast timing, which means Rain can stabilize and saturate his 3 bases, and then it comes down to how well he can hold off the drops, because I feel like the big engagements aren't really Polt's strength.
Wow.
These Phoenix getting caught, though, is nice.
No, that's more than nice. 3 Phoenixes. Rain got very, very little value out of his 5 Phoenix investment this game. That is actually not good at all. Polt being very patient there, not pushing the issue, eventually finding those Phoenixes, and even the Zealots didn't do all that much. Take a look at the units lost resource tab so far. Rain lost 1,700, Polt only 700.
This game's actually looking phenomenal for Polt as well, mostly because if you look at the upgrades, he's got his +1 attack. He has the Armory done, so he can start +2 very soon. But there's been no armor upgrades yet for Rain. He has +1 armor on the way, but it's not going to be at that time where it allows those charge zealots to really be tanky. His Marines have a substantial advantage against this army on the ground.
Yep, he's getting a few more defensive cannons as well, but cannons eventually won't cut it against Bio if it's just in overwhelming numbers. 3 more barracks and command center number 4. Polt not looking for any sort of SCV pool, not looking for any sort of double starport. He's just going to build more and more barracks. I mean, I guess from this point on, he can actually start dropping because there's just a single Phoenix left, so why not?
Yep. And right now, this army tries to poke the front. He's looking for an opportunity to, I'd imagine, maybe try to doom drop into the main base and then surround this army, split over. He's going to drop his army on top of the Colossus. Okay, that's one way to do it, Polt. He's trying to focus on the Colossi. The first one is getting very low. Both are still alive. 2 more coming from the main base. Polt's army is slowly evaporating. He kills 1 Colossus. The 3rd Nexus is still alive, though. Will he be able to set his sights on it? Doesn't look like it.
Very, very ballsy move, and it didn't work out for Polt in the end. Definitely lost more. But this is actually a pretty decent trade there, as Rain went for a very ambitious blink forward and ended up losing a lot of Stalkers.
And it actually picks up quite a few more. Mine grabs the Stalker. Those 4 Colossi still alive. He loses everything that was underneath the army, but man, that was a pretty questionable move, I'd say, by Polt, dropping on top of that force like that.
Yeah, it looked like a disaster at first. This is actually a very excellent War Prism rest over here, because he's going to be able to prevent this 4th command center from finishing up. I do think that Polt will be able to save it in time, because it has so much HP and a couple of bio units are making their way over. But if Rain wouldn't have made that ambitious blink forward, it would have been very bad for Polt. Wow, he's actually going to be able to cancel it.
All he has to do is take the wrapping paper off and lifts it into the sky. Not enough, Roddy.
Wow, that's very unfortunate for Polt. No 4th CC for him just yet. Now Templar Archives more than halfway done, by the way.
Yeah, those medevacs on the left side. We have a spotter pylon and one of those Phoenix patrolling north of the natural. Keep in mind, there's still the 2 photon cannons there. So Polt needs to be careful with his drop that's moving in. And while this War Prism sneaks its way back around towards the main, Phoenix spots it. Will Rain react in time? 2 cannons should grab the first medevac.
Yeah, the Templar Archives is almost done as well. So in the future, you can warp in a couple of High Templars and go for those feedbacks. But for now, a couple Zealots, Photon Overcharge, 1 Phoenix chipping away. I think that should be good enough for Rain. I don't think the damage should spiral out of control. The mines, though, there's no observer over there, Rain.
Yeah, he moves his Templar forward to try to feedback those medevacs. He does not have storms available. He's actually going to kill that natural Nexus. So Polt making these drops work as he is known to do. That Mothership Core does not have enough energy for another Photon Overcharge. His army is so far away. Polt could push into the main.
Yep, and Rain actually went all the way back after realizing there is not a single observer out on the map right now, and that the robotics facility got cancelled. It's killed. You know, there is no access to observers right now.
Denies the +2, and GG is called. Polt takes game number 1 against Rain, and there we see just another reminder of why. Well, you don't doubt Polt, but definitely a rocky start for Rain with the way he used his Phoenix, like you said.
And not just that, I felt even in the latest stages of that game, because he did such a good job at keeping those Colossus alive towards his third base, that I actually felt at that point the game was okay for Rain. Then he decided to march across the map, was a little indecisive, didn't have an observer, one was in production, but Polt on-powered the robo so that that observer never finished up. And then Rain is like, I think I should go back. And by the time he's back, he lost his natural, lost pretty much everything there. There's a Widow Mine in his mineral line, and he's just like, all right, I'm giving up.
Yeah, that's. I like the way that you mentioned that, though, as we see now. His mine tried to come in. He did a great job of delaying that early damage, but it was almost like Rain got overconfident because he was able to pick off those units and, you know, to take that big fight. That's something that usually would trigger you to say, okay, I should be able to go for a big attack. When this attack doesn't kill Rain and he has both of his Colossi, I think it's pretty fair to think that, okay, maybe I should be able to go across map and attack, but not against Polt.
Nope. I think he did really good over here when moving his Colossus towards the south side. Also immediately pulled the remaining forces from his main. He cleaned up the majority of the bio. But then I just think this forward blink here, he sacrifices a lot of Stalkers.
Yeah.
Stalkers are very, very weak when it comes to, you know, Marauders shooting at them and no Zealots to buffer for them. You know, that's 7, 8, 9 Stalkers that just go down there for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, and then this natural expansion, because his army's all the way across the map, he's not able to defend this base. And, you know, he had no observers on the map. His robotics facility was unpowered, so he wasn't going to get any more observers. And those Widow Mines were littered all across the field.
Very strong game number 1 here by Polt, and very frustrating game, I think, for Rain. It wasn't just the fact that things weren't really going as well, but even those Phoenixes, first they fly into Widow Mines, which is obviously something that happens to a lot of Protoss players, always happens to me. I love Phoenixes, Nate, but against Terran I find it very difficult to pull off.
I love it when they fly too. You know I love my Widow Mine openings.
But then right after that, you know, even when he kept a couple of those Phoenixes alive, he didn't really do anything with it. But normally that's not that bad, because Phoenixes, you know, they bank up energy, and eventually a couple Zealots take care of a missile turret. You kill the missile turret, then Phoenixes fly in, 7, 8 dead SCVs guaranteed. But that wasn't the case after he clicked, you know, right-clicked across the map, and 4 out of 5 Phoenixes just got shot down by a bunch of Marines.
Yeah, just a little bit sloppy there. Uncharacteristically so, we could say, from a player of Rain's caliber. But it's time to go to Terraform for game number 2. Can our Protoss player bring it back against Captain America? It is time to find out. We have a 1-0 lead for the Terran player as he spawns in the southeast position. Representing CM Storm, of course, he is Polt.
Excellent performance by Captain America in game number 1 on Moonlight Madness. Obviously a map that he has a lot more experience on than this man, though. This time we're loaded into Terraform, and that should be a map that Rain is a lot more confident on. Spawning in the left up side. Already said it. It's Rain. The double intro, Nate. It never gets old.
No, Kev. Just like Rain. So always a
Rain
pleasure
never
to watch
gets
this
old
guy.
either.
No, no. That's it's a pretty good perk, I guess. And, you know, the thing is, his playstyle is kind of like that. You know, it's timeless, Roddy.
Exactly.
Good old sit back, macro up, and crush 50 supply of your opponent's army without barely losing any of your important units. March across the map and then die to a drop. So that's pretty much what Polt's built his legacy on, right? It's like you always think that he's behind or that he's messed up, and that's when he gets you.
I was going to make a reference to the movie The Age of Adeline, but I'm sure you haven't seen it. So
I actually have, Kev.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Watched it in Holland.
So I felt that Rain's gameplay is kind of like The Age of Adeline. You know, it doesn't really matter. It's always going to be solid. He's always going to be sitting there. Polt is going to switch things up with a CC first on the low ground. That is something that Polt often does, by the way, in a best of 5 series. It's not always a Reaper into, you know, CC into mine drop. Sometimes it's gas first, sometimes it's CC first, sometimes it's Reaper into CC into 3 racks. He makes it hard for the Protoss player to figure out what he's really doing. And those are small things that I do really like about his play.
Yeah, and I think if you're a player like Polt and you're going up against somebody like Rain, you don't expect Rain to be the kind of guy that's going to throw out some crazy proxy or a 10 supply gateway, stalker rush, or anything along those lines. So you can pretty comfortably go for this command center first without much fear in your heart.
Yeah, so I was like, that's a super quick Nexus. How on earth is Rain doing that? But this is a gate into a Nexus, so even before the cybernetic score, that is normally not a very solid build if you have to worry about the Reaper. But obviously Rain has scouted, he sent his probe across the map, and there's no reason for Rain to build a Cybercore right now and delay his Nexus for 20-30 seconds, because even when that Cybercore is done, he's not going to be able to do anything with it. Even if you make a Mothership Core or a Stalker, by the time it's across the map, there will be a couple of Marines and maybe a bunker ready. So I like what Rain did there. Just get the Nexus down as quick as possible.
Ooh.
And he's going to follow it up with a Proxy Stargate.
Proxy Stargate, you imagine?
Yes, for sure. I've seen him do this as well. I think he did this against Hack, but people can correct me if I'm wrong. Same map, same position pretty much off the Proxy Stargate. This is something that Rain likes to do. And you know, sometimes, and I'm not going to say we're going to see that this time, but Rain is a pretty crazy Protoss every now and then. Like, we know that he's a defensive Protoss and he loves to defend, but he is not the same Rain as in 2013 or even 2014 14 that always defends. I've seen him go Oracle into Void Ray 7 gate.
Okay.
Now, this doesn't sound like Rain. I know that. That sounds bizarre.
You got my hopes up for a second. I wanted you to say something a little bit crazier. But
Proxy
Void Rays are
Tempest?
cool. Yeah, of course.
No. I have not seen Rain use the Roddy build yet, and I'm glad, Nick, because I couldn't handle my favorite player using my favorite build.
You'd have to like take a break from commentating.
Actually, I would just step off. It would be a solo cast by Nate.
Yeah, just need to go watch in person.
What?
What? Wait.
Okay, so
Hang on. Is the point of this to make him think that he's going to build a third command center? I'd have to imagine so. Like, you scout a guy that has 2 barracks, and like, well, this doesn't look like a fast 3cc build, but
I think he's actually just gonna research Stim and Combat Shield on the top side of the map, and then just suicide bio, and then just try to win. Because this is very weird. This is extremely uncommon, guys.
So Polt does this thing sometimes where he'll just show up to a tournament, use a build we've never seen before, and then use it every single map and win. But he didn't do this in game 1. This is pretty funky.
Second Oracle, by the way. It could be Oracle, gateways. Oracle, Void Ray gateways.
I'm actually confused. It's almost like every time I cast a new tournament with Polt in it, I go in and I'm like, yeah, I know Terran, and then Polt's just like, no, you don't.
This is kind of bad, though, for Polt. All jokes aside, he doesn't have an engineering bay yet. He's going to end up losing 4 or 5 SCVs immediately. There's another Rex going down. There's a little bit of TLO creativity. TLO said 3 out of 10 TLOs.
He's massing Marines, man. He's massing Marines versus Void Rays. Welcome to Bronze League, Roddy.
Yeah, Bronze League heroes. This is going to be insane, because Rain is going to drop 6-7 gates behind this. So Rain is going to try to all-in Polt over here, while Polt is going to try to all-in Rain.
That micro picks up all the Marines inside the main. 1 Oracle escapes. Second one should be able to get a few more kills.
But this is almost deceiving, because this is going so well for Rain that Rain is probably not thinking, there's probably 3 barracks on the north side of the map. Like, that is the last thing you ever think of when this is going on.
I just don't understand.
There we have it, by the way. This is like the most unlike Rain build in history, but for some reason he has adopted this build.
Rain doesn't do this build, so it's the best build for Rain.
This is a Huck build of 2012, you know? Like
I was gonna go for Hitman, but yeah, Huck works
Hitman.
as well. You know. Attacks based on gateways off 2 bases fall under a lot of North American
with a Void Ray sprinkled in, you know, a teaspoon of Oracles, and you have a perfect Protoss recipe.
For Terran misery, at least.
So I comment on this, Ray.
I mean, Polt's just going to build a bunch of Marines. He's going to try to stem an A move through him, but with 7 warp gates, the thing is, Rain this could actually go bad. I feel like this is still possible for it to go bad for Rain.
No, Rain hasn't lost a single unit yet in this game. It's still possible for this to be a flawless victory where Rain doesn't end up losing a single unit.
Okay. I almost want to see it now, just so we can say it happened.
I don't think it's ever happened in BlizzCon history.
He lost too many workers. I was gonna say, I'm like, this is one of those weird scenarios where you find out how good Stim Marines are, but he doesn't have Stim.
And these units are too far out of position for Polt. You know, how is he gonna buy enough time for himself? Rain is probably wondering, where is your army, or at least a Widow Mine or something? Like, you should have something.
Like, this is like when you get a new StarCraft account, you load up, and you're like against some guy who's also unranked. You're like, is he a Smurf, or did he just buy the game? And then you find out this is pretty much just bought the game level.
All right, so
it's like there's nothing here.
The reinforcements are coming in from the north side, and now Rain is going to probably see those units and wonder, where on earth did those units come from? But, you know, Nate, does it really matter?
No. In the end, it doesn't even matter, right? He pushes into the main base. And these SCVs and Marines, Stim is done, Stim is ready, but now the Oracles are going to come in as well, throwing a little bit of extra, insult to injury, as it were. Once that pylon is finished, we're going to see a bunch of Protoss units warp inside this main base, even if the game is even going by the time it's done.
We have Void Ray, Stalkers, Sentries taking care of everything that was left for Polt, and GG is called after Rain. Thanks. Well, it wasn't.
What just happened?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there are people on Team Liquid right now. They're like, man, I'm at work. I'm not allowed to watch a stream. Let's take a look at the Team Liquid forums, and then you read the summary of that game, and you just kind of wonder,
I just don't know.
No.
I've never seen a 3 racks on the other side of the map that was used to research Stim and combat shield push before.
I guess this would have just been like a massive shop of bio units across the map, and if Rain would have gone for, let's say a standard 1 gate into an expand, into a Twilight, into 2 more gates, and a late Robo, by the time you see this, the only thing you have Blink, and then you're gonna have 6-7 Blink Stalkers against a ridiculous amount of bio units. I can see this build of Polt work, but not when there are 2 Oracles killing everything you have and then Void Rays and 7 Gateways all-inning you.
I mean, in all honesty, there are some players that have really used builds like this if you build all the barracks inside your main. Like, I've seen MKP do this against Protoss, where he rushes up to Stim and combat shield, gets fast Marauders, no upgrades, no medevacs, and you just push and kill a Protoss. And I feel like against a gateway push like this, that's where you would really see how efficient bio is. But part of that problem comes back to all your stuff's on the other side of the map, and Oracles killed half your SCVs.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is the biggest problem even, that the Oracles just did way too much damage. And they even killed a lot of Marines. It wasn't just SCVs. Polt's Marine count could have been a lot higher at home already if he wouldn't have lost 5, 6, 7, 8 Marines over time. And I don't think that Rain ever even put the pieces together. He probably just thought like, man, I'm doing so well with these Oracles. This guy's got nothing,
Yeah.
And then suddenly a bunch of bio units run from the north side and you're like, oh. Well, okay, it doesn't really matter, that didn't change anything. Map number 3 is going to be played on Cactus Valley.
And this will be pretty interesting, of course, 4-player map, so, I don't think that the proxy play is going to be as big of an issue. Maybe we see a hidden base like we saw earlier from Innovation, but I don't really know if Polt's that kind of guy to do that, to be perfectly honest with you, as we are now loading in.
I mean, Cactus Valley is a map where, later on you could have potential base trade scenarios for the simple reason, especially if it's cross-map, by the way, because this is such a large map that by the time that Protoss really wants to attack, it's very difficult for Protoss to stabilize on 3 and then eventually get your 4th base, and then if you ever want to attack, there will always be medevacs flying around the map, dealing damage on your side of the map.
And that's what this guy's known for. He's always going to have medevacs around, always looking for those weak spots. And of course, he is our blue Terran player in the southeast position of Cactus Valley. He's CM Storm's Polt.
One of those moments where as a player you're probably wondering, why did I do that build? I knew it wasn't a good idea.
It's like, I did this randomly once on ladder. It won hilariously, and I was like, this is a great build.
It worked great against Roddy. Over here on the left off side of Cactus Valley, we're looking at the main base of the Protoss that's representing my insanity. It is Rain.
And this is, I think, a cool way to show that Rain's not the most predictable guy in the world. That he busts out a build like that, and it just also goes to show, shout out to Roddy, such a good fan. You do actually know all of his builds. I'm impressed. I didn't actually think he'd do a double Void Ray follow-up all in 07 gateways, but
yeah, what can I say? I dream about his build. Maybe it was just wishful thinking. Maybe he's never done it, Nate, and I just dreamed about it. That's how much I like
You
Rain.
accidentally performed Deception on Rain from across the building.
But however, it is cross-map over here, Nate, and I think that's a very good scenario for Polt. Now, I think sometimes, you think Cactus Valley, large map, and you start thinking about all those potential late-game scenarios, and you forget about the easy things in StarCraft 2. A 2-base, 7-gate Blink Stalker all-in or something, which can actually work, because that's not the first thing you think of when you think of Cactus Valley. However, there's no ramp in the natural, so Blink Stalkers can be pretty damn effective. So I really think for Polt, it's very important that he makes sure that this game passes the 13-14 minute mark and he's not behind. And I think from that point on, you can start thinking about how you actually want to win it. But I really think you have to put a marker for yourself. I want to make it to that phase in the game and make sure that I'm not behind. What Rain is going to do over here, it could just be a 1-gate fast expand Oracle, but it could also be something crazy like a big Blink Stalker attack.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see that just because, Rain's already kind of flipped my impression of what kind of builds he would bring out on its head. But Polt, like you said, he wants to get to that mid-game stage, and he's just one of those guys that really thrives off of momentum in a game like this, where he can get drops going, and if you let Polt get that first punch in, he's going to get the second punch just a little bit faster, and it just comes faster and faster at you, and the more mistakes you make, the faster the next drop hits, and it's so difficult to recover once you're behind against a guy this good.
Yeah, the snowball effect is extremely real when you play against Polt. If he catches a little bit of momentum, he's going to come in like a freight train. He ain't stopping anymore. So curious to see what is going to be the tech building for Rain. I think it's a Stargate just because this map is so big. If he goes for a Robo, then we are going to see old school Rain, then it's going to be very passive. If it's a Twilight, it could be passive play, it could just be Twilight into a Robo, into, make sure I shut down drops, or it could be very aggressive Blink Stalker play. It's going to be one of the three. Or he just drops 7 gates right now. It makes me look really stupid, but I find that unlikely, Nick.
Well, you'd have a difficult time getting across the map. I mean, I guess unless Polt was doing another weird build, but for this game, he's actually playing very straight up, very standard with the 3 barracks follow-up, with that command center coming in.
It's so unfortunate for Polt that probe, I think, is just going to make it into the main base. These are small things, but as a Protoss player, I get so happy when my probe gets into the main, and it's like, cool. No quick factory follow-up,
No
it's going
mine
to be,
drop.
Yeah, going to racks number 2 and 3, and I'm, now it's basically up to Rain about how he wants to deal with this. I think Robo is the easiest way, which is what he's going to do, because he can just drop the robotics bay as quick as possible, and by the time that the first real bio push comes, where Polt could potentially have Stim, you're going to have a Colossus, and then...
Yeah, and your second one will be very close by as well if you go straight for it, too.
And the world is your oyster.
Yeah. That's a tough spot to be in as a Terran player, because those reinforcements, you're rallying across the map, so you have to rely on the drops in stages like that.
What I sometimes like when some Terran players do it, I don't think Polt is going to do it. After their opening gets scouted, just drop a third command center immediately. I kind of think that's a very cool play. Of course, you have to worry about 2 base Colossus all-ins then, but Cactus Valley, 2 base Colossus all-in, is that really a thing?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to get there. I mean, you could say the natural choke point's pretty open, and that third base is very easy to section off, which is probably one of the reasons why we saw a player like Innovation go for the hidden third, just because it's so easy to force field the natural, go kill the third base, and then the reinforcements of the Terran player can't come in. But yeah, well, I'm a greedy Terran like anybody else, Brody. I'd never say no to a third command center.
Well, first observer is on the way, and he's probably going to rally it across the map immediately. You don't have to worry about drops when you saw Rex number 2 and 3. So just send it across the map and try to figure out what is going on in the main base of Polt. Polt's getting his eBay. He doesn't know yet what Rain is doing, so could potentially still be an Oracle opening. That's why he's putting all of his Marines into his mineral lines, making sure that if it's a single Oracle, he can at least deflect it.
And does not want to have a repeat, of course, of the last game where 2 Oracles come in, absolutely Shrek his Marines, and then kill all of his SCVs. War Prism is on the way, though, so Rain's going to be a little bit cheeky here in the start of this game.
That's a very quick War Prism. I guess this is normally the phase in the game where you could say your robotic facility is kind of idle, right? Because do you want to make an Immortal? Sometimes it can be decent, you make an Anchor Immortal, but Immortal's not good against a lot of Marines early on.
No.
So you could just let it wait, let it idle until the robotics bay finishes up. Or he's like, well, I'm going to make a Warp Prism eventually. I may as well just get it right here and right now.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see, because we already had, I think it was on Bridgehead earlier, a PBT with a Colossus drop. And if you can catch the Terran player off guard with a lot of Marines, and it's certainly a very powerful strategy. We actually saw it used last year at BlizzCon. Classic actually used it against Polt.
Yeah, exactly, on Catalina, right?
Yeah, I think he did it like twice, maybe.
Nimbus as well. Yeah.
He brutalized him with it, actually.
Yep, 1 Colossus drop, then you wipe in 4 Zealots, and that's most of the time that would hit right when the Terran is across the map, and then it's like, there's a Colossus in my net, sure, how did that happen?
What do?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a Colossus drop, so, the War Prism's making its way downtown by itself.
Walking fast, faces past.
And Polt bound.
As the observers, I do like the amount of observers that Rain has go for so far. He already has 3. Cactus is an extremely large map, so you can never have enough of them. Not quite Pick Baby level yet, no 5 or 6, but I really think that 3 observers is very solid.
Yeah, he's at a healthy amount while he makes his move into Colossi, gets range, and even already now moving into those photon cannons defensively, preparing preemptively for the drop play that he knows is going to come. Because Polt always brings the noise, that's what he does.
Yeah, and he's gonna go for Rex number 4 and 5 before commencing number 3. So this is just Polt saying, hey, I want to get as many units out as quick as possible, and I want to start being Polt. I just want to start.
Just let me be me, Rain.
And then he's going to try to, of course, make it hard for Rain to go up to 3 bases. Now, the double forge of Rain is kind of telling us that Rain has no ambitions to go up to 3 bases super quickly, unlike Zess had early today against Innovation. And I think that's kind of smart, you know, on maps like this, where it's hard to have enough units in every position to go up to 3 bases quick, just, you know, tone it down a notch. Go double forge, defend on 2 bases a tiny bit later, or a tiny bit longer, and then eventually go up to 3 bases when your life is just a little easier, when you have a few more Colossus to work with.
So Polt has that push getting ready to look for a third base of Rain. At the same time, that Warp Prism hits. I love this. 2 Zealots get dropped in the natural. He forces a big stim out, kills a few SCVs, prevents a little bit of mining, and then runs off into the main base. He's going to warp in a bunch more Zealots inside this mineral, and if he can get down a good number of these SCVs, he can really slow Polt down.
Yeah, but I don't like it that much, because he knew that all the bio units were over here. The Warp Prism is going to fall, and Rain ends up losing. What was that, Nate? 900 minerals, or
yeah, well, he lost a lot of those
9
zealots.
You know, Prism,
and that's just a little. It looks like a little bit of a micro error. Like maybe he tried to pick up those zealots, but that Warp Prism turned back for a second and was like, man, there's no way out of there.
I'm not sure if Rain saw the same thing that we saw, but there were a lot of bio units in position in the natural to deal with those first 2 zealots immediately. And I think after you see that, you should just cut your losses and make sure, you know, get out with the other 2 zealots, or maybe drop 2 zealots in the main, but don't warp in 6 more zealots, because 900 minerals on a 2-base Protoss economy. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Polt is just raking in that cash money. He's ahead in SCVs. He has the mules. He has his third base already saturated now. He can mule those mineral patches and get extra efficient mining. So Rain, he needs to be exceedingly cost-effective in this game to have a chance. And look at that, a Dark Shrine starts up.
Yep. He's not exactly behind yet, but I think that Polt is very happy with how this game went so far. And you know, if I was Polt, I'd be quite pleased with it. 3 more Rexes going down. Polt, like you said, he's rich enough. He can afford it all. So it's going to be 3 more Rex before a second starport. Against these Colossus openings, I don't really mind quickest second starports, but you know, this is Polt, and we know that Polt loves to just have as many medevacs and as many Marauders and Marines as possible, because eventually he should find an opening.
Yeah, that's kind of Polt's specialty, right? You're never really safe from his drops. No matter how many cannons you build, you know, at some point you'll actually just have no army if you want to have enough cannons to defend against his drops.
Rain is a little sloppy this game. Take a look at the left side, there's a pylon there, but on top of that pylon there's an observer. And obviously this observer should never be here, because if you take a look at Rain's vision, he doesn't actually see all that much. Like now his units are in position for this bio push. It's coming in from the right side. Polt is stimming forward, he throws down his scan, he's like, well, there's not a whole lot there. Rain, you're going to have to defend this Nexus though, for sure. But I guess he's waiting for 1 more Colossus.
Yeah, third Colossus is here. He has that Guardian Shield as well. And that's always a scary feeling when Polt attacks your Nexus, because it's usually a sign your Nexus is going to die.
That's a really big deal there. Polt finds that pylon, but not in time for the Dark Shrine finishes up. So a couple of Dark Templars will be wiped in. And I love how Rain immediately sends them in every direction. 1 scan is not going to be enough. Well, he does have a mist turret over here, but maybe if he sends it all the way to the bottom, it's out of sight. Yep, out of detection range. And that other Dark Templar is working on that 4th command center. On Moonlight Madness, he got the cancel. This time he's not going to be able to get the cancel.
So Polt will get up to that 4th base, and he has his 5th on the way now, too, in the northeast side of the map, in a phenomenal stance to continue to keep that economic pressure up. And look at this, he's maxed out, and he's got money in the bank, Kev.
He's so rich. Polt is ridiculously rich at the moment. While Rain is just trying to save pennies here and there.
He's breaking open all the piggy banks.
Yep, he's like, I know I have something, you know, my early days.
There's another couple quarters left here.
I still made a bunch of zeros. Charge is going to finish up for Rain though, and his upgrades are going to kick in as well. Polt is behind on the upgrades, as Funka showing us. Rain gets 5 more gates, but this is like a crucial phase here. 83 army supply against 131. This is something that Todd loves to pay attention to. Oh, wow, was that an observer or something?
Yeah, he scanned and the mine killed the observer.
And his own units, a couple of them. Rain is in a good position, but it's very hard to win every fight here. But of course, Polt doesn't have Vikings anywhere, and that makes it a little bit easier. Just make sure your Colossus are never out of position. Polt's gonna pick up a couple units. Rain has no vision on that side. He does have one
really
more
risky.
observer.
He has the observer watching the right side, so he knows about Polt's army by the 3rd base, but this drop in the main. Okay, he does see the medevacs. Will he respond in time?
We're watching 3 zealots. I mean, it is a response, but probably not the one that he's looking for. But I think it's going to be enough. Those 2 Colossus should be good enough. Zealot's doing a really good job in soaking up the majority of those shots.
Yeah, he's focused right on those medevacs. He grabs one of the empty ones. The 3 full ones escape. He's got another big drop coming here too.
Yeah, I like this a lot from Polt. Polt realized that Rain left a lot of units at his third base. So Polt is like, okay, instead of trying to do that, let's just pick up everything and let's just try to fly everything into the main base. He's going to find that fourth base. He doesn't see the observer. That's so unfortunate. If Polt would have taken away those eyes from Rain, this would have been a lot harder. Feedbacks will go down, but a lot more medevacts are coming in. Where are the Colossus? They're a little bit out of position.
Yeah,
Rain is very far out of position.
Yeah, we're over by the fourth base. First Colossus is going to show up. Polt immediately unloads on top of it. One of the medevacs actually does not unload, so Polt doesn't have instant access to all of his units. He's going to be forced back. Loads up another medevac, trying to retreat. The Stalker is not going to get any of the full ones.
That was actually excellent for Rain. I was a little bit worried because he only had one Colossus in the main, but he brought the other Colossus over just in time. You know, it was one more and then the additional Colossus. And just look at units lost resources.
6 Vikings on the way as well.
Suddenly, Polt lost a lot more than Rain did in this game. Well, not a lot, but a little bit. And before, obviously, Polt you know, was the one who was being more cost effective. Let's not forget that Polt is insanely rich, so it is okay for him to lose a couple units. He has no hard time in reproducing them or rebuilding them. But the biggest problem is Polt doesn't have a Ghost Academy yet. He does start producing Vikings now, and that does make me happy.
Yeah, he's getting a lot.
Yeah, eventually you need an answer to all those Colossus, and right now even Storm, Archons and High Templars.
Yep, Storm is going to be an issue as well. He's getting, looks like possibly Warp Prism speed there as well. Be a little bit more active out on the map.
This is that defensive Rain that we were talking about, by the way. He doesn't do it every game anymore, but this is Rain 2013, 2014, every single game. Does not attack. Then again, attacking on Cactus Valley, I went over that in the start of this game.
Bit
so
bold.
difficult, so difficult. You will always, you know, or 8 out of 10 times you want to attack here, you end up in a weird base trade scenario. Unless you're truly set up on 4 bases, have enough units at home, have enough High Templars with 200 energy, otherwise it's so difficult to attack here.
So Roddy, we're reaching that phase of the game that Polt has talked about as being where he is strongest, and Rain is stable on 4 bases. He's adding a bunch of photon cannons. What does he need to do here, you think? What's the biggest threat as if you're a Protoss player right now? Is it Polt going for a big Doom drop or trying to split you apart?
Yeah, I think if I'm Rain right now, I'm happy. I got my 4th base, I got my 2nd Robo, I got access to High Templars. I'm just gathering up energy on my High Templars. I'm going to defend, I'm going to let you try to break me, but you shouldn't be able to break me. Just defend, 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 and eventually when you kill enough, that's when you can attack.
Yeah, okay, so he's going to come up here with the Vikings and try to get these Colossi. He does not actually drop any Storms on this army. He gets a few feedbacks. There was not enough energy on the High Templar. 2 Colossi actually die. Most of the Vikings are still there. And at the same time, Polt is just hitting him from too many angles at once. The Templar come up, but a little bit too late as the Vikings land, and Rain's got nothing.
Rain still has money, though, and he has double Robos. So with 2 Colossus in production, maybe he might be able to stabilize over here, but oh my god, that was a phenomenal fight for Polt. Of course, these Storms do a lot of damage on the Marauders, on the Vikings as well. As long as Rain keeps his Nexus alive, he keeps his dreams alive of winning this game. And with the amount of gateways that he has and Photon Overcharge, he's going to be okay for now, but that got very scary. That shouldn't have happened.
What a crazy game. So he just now starts another Colossus, but Polt has so many bases, he can just rain down mules forever and ever. Like you said, he's a rich boy. And I'm still really concerned for Rain in this game.
Well, I mean, he's going to rebuild his Colossus 2 at a time. He's going to wipe in a lot of High Templars, and he has a lot of gateways. So it's not too bad. He survived there. If he would have lost his 4th base, I think that's when things would have got very, very dicey. This was definitely a shocker for Rain. Just because you have Colossus and Storm, that doesn't mean that you can sleep on the job. You're going to have to pay attention on any given moment. He's going to send a bunch of Zealots over here to the left bottom. We'll be able to...
Okay, focuses down the repairing mules, so his Zealots will be enough to destroy this planetary fortress, and thus delaying a bit of Polt's economy as he loses a few of those precious mules too.
Still no Ghost Academy for Polt. He's just not a big
I think
fan.
He got the Ghost Academy. He's just not building ghosts.
Okay, I guess it's because he still wants to make this a fast, high-paced game, and obviously ghosts do kind of slow down the pace of the game, right? You know, there's not really a unit that you drop. They're too expensive for that. And if you want to have ghosts, you kind of have to keep your army with them to make sure that you keep the ghosts alive at all costs.
Ooh. Nabs that Warp Prism, but not before these Templar do escape. They're going to try to storm some SCVs. Pulls the boys to try to fight these Templar.
Eventually you can hug the Templars.
Yeah.
They don't fight back.
Yeah. I mean, if they storm you while you're hugging them, then...
One High Templar took out the other one with his storm. Friendly fire.
It's a shame. I mean, he's pumping out high-powered units right now, right? They build slowly, but 2 more Colossi, a couple more Templar, +3 attack.
Like, I understand that Rain wants to have some sort of aggressive presence on this map as well, with his Prism and with his high Templars, but man, that's sloppy and it hurts. He lost the Observer, loses the Stalker. He's gonna lose. Well, almost lost another Stalker,
Nice
but
moves.
yep, managed to just dodge those. But look at the supply again, man. I really think that if Polt goes absolutely all out, 84 against 139. How many Observers are left for Rain? Just 2, and where are they?
Yeah.
And one Observer is, I felt still a little bit too far to the left side. I feel this Observer should be on patrol, like this one kind of is.
Yeah, Polt is just so rich.
Like, this is an army of Colossus and High Templars, and I know those are the 2 best units in the game against Bio, but you need something else as well.
Need some meat with that Hoagie, Roddy. 3 cannons, 4 cannons with a couple of Templar here to try to defend against this push on the east side. He needs to storm. He needs to actually use the energy on those Templar.
Yep, double storms do go down, but they went down rather late. So Polt's getting a good trade over here.
Big drop.
Single High Templar is not enough. This is going to be a very successful drop, I think. Most of the units were on the low ground.
And now Polt's really starting to pull Rain apart. He's managed to penetrate the main base. He still has that army outside of the third. And Rain, how is he supposed to stop this onslaught from crushing him? The Colossi are in position in the northeast, but Polt's still got a lot of money. Viking production is going again.
Yep, okay, so Rain is taking care of this side of the map at least, but he still doesn't have enough in the main base. Just a couple Zealots. He's going to be able to morph those High Templars into the Archon, but he will need to warp in a few more units before he can really take care of these Marauders. And during all this, you said it as well, I think Polt is starting to build a stronger and stronger army. And I kind of think it's about time.
Look at that money too, man. He got some donations for his next campaign as Captain America from Trump here.
You know, I would love to see the resource score of this game at the end, because I think that right now Polt has gathered around 10-15,000 resources more than Rain has. Rain's still hanging in there as a champion, but it's starting to get harder and harder. And let's not forget, the main base is empty for Rain. The natural is starting to run really dry, and if you have trouble defending 4 bases, it's going to be impossible to go up to 5 bases on Cactus Valley.
It does kind of feel like Polt's almost making this a little bit easier for Rain, though, by not building ghosts, because these Templar have really been super instrumental, and he doesn't have any great way of dealing with them, because all he can do is try to snipe them with his bio.
Then again, this is a scenario that I'm pretty familiar with whenever I play StarCraft, and it's just you're defending, but you're never going to win a game against a very good Terran player by just defending. Eventually, Rain does need to sort of attack. Again, these are good pickups for Polt. He picks up 300-400 gas. Those do really add up over time. Gonna get a few more High Templars here even.
Yeah, he gets a lot of damage in on these Bioforces, but the Medivacs have lots of energy, and in this scenario, you actually want to keep that energy low so that you can't feedback them.
I mean, but if you talk about being in control of the game, Polt is absolutely in control of the game. He has a hammerlock on this game almost, because he has way more bases. He has all the eyes that he wants to have. There are just a couple of observers here and there for Rain. He does have a couple of units sprinkled out around the map now, but overall, you know, this is what you want to have as a Terran versus Protoss. Okay, he got up to 4 bases. That's unfortunate, but he's not getting a 5th.
And this is it. At some point, he's going to be forced to take the fight.
Those Colossus, man.
Yeah, the Vikings actually get a bunch of free shots off on these ones. There's a Templar from below. Big EMP hits 3 of them. The Storms are not landing. He gets a good one on the Vikings, but the Colossi are almost all dead anyway.
I think that's going to be it, Nathan. All the Colossus are gone. A lot of Marines and Marauders coming forward. It took a long time before Ghosts made their entrance to the battlefield, but the first EMPs, they were golden. They couldn't have been any better, hitting so many High Templars. This is the moment you press F2. That's why all those observers are coming in, and you try to get every unit you have as Rain, and he pushes his army back for now, but he's almost crippled now.
Polt just has too much money. Look at this, 5 Ghosts in production, another command center. He's got 3K, 1K in the bank. He can build whatever he wants.
It did make me feel happy to see that the best, you know, my favorite Protoss does press F2 as well. Otherwise, you don't have 5 observers then, Nate.
Yes, sometimes we are all forced to do that. You know, Polt definitely hasn't pressed F2 at all, because that Reaper has actually been chilling at the tower. That tells you the state of this game. Polt's opening Reaper has been at this tower the entire game since that first minute.
He's going to get the next level Big Brother award. You know, that achievement you get when you hold the Zelnaga for 5 minutes? It's like Big Brother is watching you.
Hold Zelnaga for 30 minutes. Like, yeah, hold it forever.
A few more. Has to be careful there, because there are still High Templars out on the map. Like, the longer these Medivacs stay around, sometimes it's really good to just drain a little bit of energy. Storm drop did happen on the right side of this map over here. He picked up 11 SCVs, but that's actually not that bad for Polt, as crazy as that sounds. Yeah. With 46 workers and plenty of mules, that's more than enough for Polt. This is just going to make his army bigger and better.
You have to ask Kev, can we agree that if Rain doesn't secure this base, there's like no way he could build the army he needs to actually take this game, right?
Yeah, for sure, he does need it. Now this is a pretty nice drop as a lot of the buy units are out of position. Rain still has to be careful. I do feel that Rain is throwing away too many units while not even being close to max out. You know, if you're at 175 supply, I'm completely okay with throwing Zealots here and there, but after those two horrible fights in the game, the first one very early on and that most recent fight, I do not feel that Rain is in a position to throw away so many units. Those storms were juicy though.
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing for Rain right now is maybe the whole point of that was just to keep those units at bay. But Polt still has a ton of money, even though he's lost some workers. Like, he's not in any risk of running out of resources anytime soon.
Yeah, I do love that analysis actually, Nate. I wasn't really thinking about it, but just sending in a couple Zealots, even when they won't kill anything, as long as you buy a little bit of time for yourself and maybe make that 5th base an actual, you know, make it a defendable base somehow, some way with a couple cannons, spread out your units properly.
Does he have Cloak for these ghosts? I'm curious now. Because,
yes, he does.
Okay, now I'm really worried because he's already broken up trying to chrono out all of those Colossi, but with 12 ghosts on the map.
There are 5 observers, but he's going to go for it again. Look at those Colossus. They almost feel like sitting decks. Another scan goes down. A couple of observers do get picked off. Rain does still have 1 or 2 observers remaining, but there are so many ghosts. They have so much energy
the
as well.
Templar clump up. He gets all of them. No more storms. And now the ghosts are going to cloak. They step forward. The 2 Colossi trying to stave this off by themselves are not going to be enough. Roddy Polt pushes in towards that crucial 5th base of Rain. He needs this to survive. He needs this to keep his hopes of winning this map alive, but they will not be saved. GG. Polt takes a 2-1 lead over Rain.
Wow, what a phenomenal game for Polt. That's truly all you can wish for. He just beat Rain at what Rain is best known for, at defending. Polt just found an opening eventually. He had to work really hard for it, but a couple of times he just saw that the army of Rain was a tiny bit out of position, and he capitalized on that mistake immediately. Jeff mentioned that on the couch. He is very good at capitalizing on opportunities, and he did it there, man. Twice he was able to win a fight with pretty much just Marines and Marauders against Colossus and Storm. That's not supposed to happen.
No, and a lot of it comes down to he picked off so many forces here and there, and even though it was an army of Colossi Templar, you said it yourself, Kev, you need something else. You do need to have Zealots in there to tank for that army, Blinkstalkers to catch those medevacs, because Polt he never had to actually replace most of those medevacs. He kept throwing wave after Viking and switching to the Ghosts, and I mean, this has been a tough series, but this is Polt showing that when you count him out, he's always going to show up.
2 big mistakes there, I think, for Rain in that game. Just the first time he didn't expect Polt to attack, and then the second time the Colossus were just walking up and down cliffs, and Polt had an overwhelming amount of Vikings. That was close to 15, 16, 17 Vikings, and if that amount of Vikings can get 2 or 3 free volleys off, I mean, Colossus will fall.
It's uncalled for, really. There's no excuse for that, and it's Polt being able to pull Rain out of position like that. That's showing why he deserves to be here in the top 16.
Now, I must say, Cactus Valley, I think, is the hardest map in this current map pool for Rain to pull off that defensive style.
Agreed.
Because it is so, like, getting up to 4 bases is already difficult. Getting up to 5, well, that's borderline impossible unless you are far ahead.
But I still think that Coda should favor Polt style against Rains. Even though there are less angles of attack, you still have the airspace by the natural, by the 3rd, and right outside your main.
Yes, but also the bases are a lot closer to each other. Just compare these 4 bases to the 4 bases on Cactus Valley, and you know, even a potential 5th base. And that's why I think if Rain would go for the same style, for the same approach, maybe it's going to be Oracle play. We don't know, but I think if Rain played the same way as he did on Cactus Valley and just pays a tiny bit more attention to his main army, I think he still has a very good shot at least evening up this series.
All right, well, it's going to be very difficult, I think, since Polt has, you know, he's so good once he gets momentum going. And
I mean, we do got to give this guy a lot of credit, because this is the same old story with Polt. The boys went over it as well. Every single year we go over this. Yeah, Polt, you know, he beats up on North Americans or every now and then a European, but, you know, against the Caspa pros, against GSL champions, Polt just doesn't cut it anymore. Now we're here again. Polt is up 2-1. 1 map win away from making it into BlizzCon, and that is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it goes without saying, you know, you play in those non-Korean tournaments for the most part. You're not playing against championship tier players, and he still shows up. He has this 2-1, and it's not over yet, but he's got a chance. And as we get into game number 4, things are getting crazy, Roddy.
I cannot believe what I'm seeing.
Rain has been pushed to the edge of insanity. In the top left position, we have his unsuspecting victim. In the northwest, the blue Terran player from CM Storm, he's Polt.
Polt, of course, on the left top side of Coda. Coda, a two-player map, so you always know where your opponent spawns. And Rain's strategy, well, it's based around that. He's, of course, a Protoss in the right bottom side of the map, representing my insanity. It is Rain. That's the second time I did a double intro. Nate, from now on, it's all you.
No, Kev, you have to keep double introing.
But Rain sent one of his very first probes across the map. This is something that's not common. Obviously, what you're hoping for over here is that your opponent opens up with a CC first on the low ground. If that's the case...
Oh, it could be. He does not have...
No.
You know, it's like he brings that SCV back, sends out another one, and you're like, Polt, you should just use the one that's already there. It's like, why'd you have to make me believe? It's just one gateway, though, so he'll probably take a gas, Fast Stalker, Zealot Rush.
Yeah, so maybe if he can, if the Reaper actually runs across the map and is not there, then maybe Zealot Stalker or Zealot Stalker maybe can kill the reactor even, can make sure that the Marine count stays low. Polt needs to get a bunker up ASAP against this as soon as he realizes that this is what's happening, but I'm shocked. This is, you know, very, very unlike Rain.
Yeah, it's actually, he starts the pylon, he doesn't have the gas no yet, and this SCV could actually,
oh my god.
No.
This is disaster for Rain.
Well,
that is an absolute disaster.
That's a pretty disappointing way to go out of the top 16 if Polt just sees this. Barely.
No, he changed his rally point. Are you kidding me?
I
he
can't
changed
believe
it. It was on top of the gateway.
Polt, sometimes you gotta just trust your first click, man. He's like, oh, I'm not being cheesed.
Wow, that couldn't have been any closer. Just look at the Fog of War once again. That could not have been any closer. 1 pixel.
Polt.
But Rain still hoping to find a CC.
Man, he won't find it.
In the end, this doesn't change that much.
Yeah, the Reaper will be here. I mean, he can prevent this SCV from starting the command center.
I'm a little bit shocked that he's sending the first Zealot in like this.
Wow, a lot of SCVs get pulled to deal with this. Polt is super concerned. I'd imagine at this point you're really worried about the Stalker coming in and messing things up, but it's actually just 2 Zealots.
I think it's in situations like this, I do still think it's a lot better to overpool than underpool. Just make sure your bunker finishes up, because as long as the bunker finishes up, you're not going to end up losing this game.
He still kills a reasonable number of SCVs. He gets a good amount of information as well. If he had killed that Reaper,
yeah, that was really close. The Reaper
gets close to a very scary moment.
One swipe away. I mean, right now we're looking at 20 workers against 13, so you could say that's a workable scenario for Rain, but that's not everything. This Reaper is going to make his way across the map soon. It might be able to get a probe or 2. There is a mothership core. So Rain is going to build a Nexus. So he's basically saying, eventually you may kill this gateway and this pylon. I have accepted that. Polt did get his bunker up. That's the most important thing. Factory is going to be the follow-up. And let's not forget, no CC yet for Rain, for Polt, of course.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Rain can't really move that mothership core out across the map because the Reaper is still sharking about and presents a very real threat to any probes back home.
So maybe it was a slight overpool at the SCVs then in the end. He did get the bunker up, but maybe he chased the Zealots out a little too far. Like, I think the most important is just keep your Zealots, just keep the
I mean, the ideal scenario is that you push the Zealot away, you pull your SCVs inside your wall, you shut the door, and
and exactly, you have the Reaper behind the wall.
We don't participate in trick-or-treat here.
And the Zealots were pretty far away from the depot, so I kind of feel that was an option for Polt. You push them away, then you raise the depots, you let the bunker finish up. There's only Zealots anyway, so the SCV will always be able to complete the bunker. Then he would have lost a tiny bit less. But he's still in this. However, Rain with a quicker expand now, with a robotics facility on the way against his factory follow-up from Polt.
And how often do we really see that, though, where the Protoss player actually has their expansion up before the Terran? In scenarios like this, it's the Mule that's supposed to, off 2 bases, give you that economic advantage versus the Protoss. But Rain starts the game with the worker lead, has the faster expansion. If he defends the mine drop, he should be in a phenomenal position.
30% of the people out there, Nate, still believe in Rain, the GSL champion of Season 2 in 2015. It's going to be Hellions as well. That's kind of cool.
Faster reinforcements across the map.
Yep. 2 to 4.
Or possibly a Hellion drop.
It could be like Marines and a Widow Mine in the main base or on top of the ramp. and then Hellions in the natural. We saw 4GG use that against Lilba on this map, and Lilba had excellent SimCity, you remember, with the Python on the low ground and the Robo. But if you don't have it, I personally think it's very difficult to defend against Hellions, especially when you lose a Stalker this early on. Every Stalker matters in a scenario like this.
Yeah, this is a really big deal. He has another couple Hellions on the way too.
Rain should really stop prioritizing workers right now and start
Your
prioritizing
opponent's a one-base Terran.
Yeah. Get units. Like, Rain needs units ASAP. He's up 15 workers now. That's an uncanny amount for this phase in the game.
What do you think, Kev? Just Stalkers, right?
Yeah.
Just Stalkers.
Stalk's perfect. Stalk's good against everything.
Stop chronoing the Nexus.
Yes, absolutely. I really feel he needs gateway units as quick as possible. Spot's a Hellion. I'm not sure if he... Spot's the second Hellion as well. So I'd say get everything in the main for now. But I would even love to see a Forge, maybe, you know? Ooh, if he can get a couple of shots up on this Medivac, yes he does. The units will be unloaded on top of the ramp.
He's trying to sequester the bases.
Sacrifice a probe. I would sacrifice a probe.
Yeah,
Put a Widow Mine. The Medivac even took some damage.
And he gets the Medivac kill, so no dice here at the start of the game for Polt. And Stim is, you know, it's almost halfway done, but Rain still has a very capable force on the map.
Yeah, that was flawless. Absolutely flawless defense there by Rain. May have lost his Stalker earlier on, but that was great.
He does need to get that Observer over there to clean up that mine, though. You do not want to have any incidentals here.
Maybe one more probe is going to die. I think Rain forgot about it, but that's all right, you know. That was still phenomenal.
Yeah. I think as long as he doesn't lose like a Stalker to it, should be okay.
He's going to see the Hellions. He could Photon Overcharge immediately, which is what he should be doing. Make sure that they don't run into the main base.
Okay, so that mine will go off again. Hits the mothership core, but doesn't kill it. And yeah, it doesn't really kill any probes.
Doesn't lose a single worker.
And that should also remind him that the mine is there. And he's just gonna roll up. He's like, says, well met, and there's nothing here to say back.
This could very well. Okay, there is a bunker going up on the top of the ramp once again, and there is a Widow Mine, but with 4 or 5 units, it's going to be very tricky. Polt is very fortunate that Rain doesn't have a pylon on the other side of the map, because if he has 7 Stalkers against, you know, these 5 units, that could be the end.
There are very few scenarios where I see a Terran with 39 supply versus 76 of a Protoss and think that the Terran's got a chance, but it is Polt, so going to keep our eyes open here as Rain does start up a third base.
Rain with his 2 Zealots early on. Bizarre, he really put it all on the line.
He's at 51 probes of 27 SCVs.
Yes, that is an unfair fight. Yeah. That's like when you're boxing, you go up against a guy that's 3 weight classes above you.
But that's the thing about Polt, is he somehow manages to get those good punches on you even when he looks like he's basically ground beef.
Yeah, but I'm afraid that the punches this game won't really hurt. Because even if he gets a successful drop now, and let's say he kills 15 workers, he's still trailing by 10. Yeah. And that is just not something that I
So if you're Rain, what do? Drop a few cannons on your third base and just kill him with 3 Colossi?
I'd say make sure you have enough gateways, you know, just in case he goes for a crazy drop. And then I would say I leave 1 Colossus at home, and with my other 2 Colossus, I run across the map and win. Just always leave 1 Colossus at home so you have some real damage against the drop.
Observer sees these forces moving out too through the center position, so he could defend that third base pretty easily too.
And he's wondering right now, where's the rest? Well, Rain, you did so much damage. There's no rest.
There's nothing else.
That's nothing, Colares. Maynard is, of course, making an appearance at BlizzCon.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I almost want to cast them just so you can say that's nothing next to me. To my ears. I need that in my life.
Yeah, I mean...
Colossus range is almost done, and these Marines, without combat shield especially, they're not going to put up too much of a fight against those. So Polt's kind of dancing around, but that's really all he can do is just dance. You know, there's no moves he can make.
He's not in a position to throw away bio units like he was in Cactus Valley.
He is not a rich boy today.
He's nowhere near as rich. And there we do see the extra gates going down. Rain is getting his defensive cannons. He's getting Blink. Blink, of course, great in shutting down drops, and also, you know, great in running across the map and picking off anything that's trying to poke, trying to be annoying. So obviously, we really love Rain's position over here, and it's kind of just, it's up to Rain right now when he wants to win a game. I think the only thing that Rain should not do is defend forever.
Yeah, that's where you're going to allow Polt back into the game, and then he's going to get those drops going again. And Rain should just take the opportunity as soon as he sees it, really, because Polt just has so little to work with. And if he kills the army, there's no bank behind it because he has so few workers.
Yep, still a 24 worker advantage, a full base advantage. He has Blink, he has Colossus. There's only 2 Vikings on the map. It's so funny because Polt is forced into Viking production so early that he only has 2 Medivacs, so he can't drop, because if he loses the Medivacs, he has 0 Medivacs, and who's ever going to fight against Protoss with 0 Medivacs?
Yeah, with no healing, those units are going to absolutely annihilate you, especially those Marines that get killed in 2 swipes by these Colossi in Heart of the Swarm. I'm very concerned now, because Rain's got his pylon set up. He should be able to make this push. There's no bunkers. Polt doesn't even have enough SCVs to actually pull them. Like if he pulls them, it's just like, okay, well, you're not really pulling the boys. You're just like, okay, couple people. That's it. There's barely anything.
And Rain is realizing that the entire army of Polt is on this side of the map, so he's bringing the rest from home now as well, which is 7-8 additional Stalkers, another Colossus, and
this position, Polt's getting ready to make a pretty paltry sandwich, I would say, with these forces on the right side, but they're not actually moving in yet. So Rain steps forward. There's the Vikings trying to hit these Colossi. Whoa. Marines come in from the right side. That pylon isn't actually done to reinforce.
It's actually pretty good. He gets 3 out of 4 Colossus, but 1 Colossus does survive, and I think that is already
the
more than
Big
enough.
Daddy Colossus. And GG's called. Rain ties the series 2-2. We got ourselves a rubber match here, Ronnie.
Wow, who could have ever thought that Rain would be tied up with Polt 2-2 after winning 2 games where his builds were relatively cheesy, and in the more straight-up games, he lost twice. Like, that is the opposite of what we would normally expect, or at least expected in the past of Rain.
Yeah, you would think that Rain's the guy to take those macro games, but I do think that also just shows another level of this guy's play, his skill, is that he can really open up the playbook if he needs to get the right strategies out there. And even in these scenarios, like those SCVs, you said it, they come out really far. You want to get your units inside that wall and shut the door.
Why did he turn around there? That was really the moment where he could have get all the SCVs behind. The Reaper doesn't even have to take that route because the Reaper can hop up anywhere. So, and then the bunker finishes up, you put the Reaper in the bunker and the Zealots won't do anymore.
And then these Stalkers as well shut down this drop so nicely. The Widow Mine doesn't help either.
And that accidental probe that was rallied towards the natural. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Baits the shot, precisely what Rain needed in this game to bring things up to parity. So we find ourselves 2-2, and I have to wonder, what does Rain do now? Does he throw out another cheese? It's a 4-player map. You can't really go for a proxy gateway.
No, I definitely not going to be proxy gate. I don't think it's going to be super cheesy. I think it's going to be a Stargate play. 1 gate Nexus followed up by a Stargate with 1 Oracle. So no crazy Phoenix play, just 1 Oracle to see what on earth is going on, and just slowly but steady take the game from there. Maybe double forge into 3 bases again, kind of similar to Cactus Valley, but it's easier than on Cactus Valley.
I still think this is a tougher map if you aren't going to go for one of those like 1 or 2 base all-ins as a Protoss. Polt can really open it up on this map because you can spread that bio out so well. Force fields are much less effective in these open areas on a map like Iron Fortress.
And a lot of surface area in the main base as well to drop. But still, I can't really imagine Rain going for another, proxy Stargate, double Void Ray 7 gate.
Why not?
I can actually see maybe Polt do something crazy. Of course, Polt is probably wondering as well, should I do something crazy? I tried it once, didn't work, where the games I played normal, absolutely everything went fine for me. But Iron Fortress is a good map for Terran to do something a little different as well, because there's no ramp in the natural. That's
right. It's very easy to put that pressure on. Let's find out who is going to advance here in the round of 16. It's the final map of this Terran versus Protoss. It'll be played out on Iron Fortress. We have horizontal spawns, and in the bottom right position, your red Terran player from CM Storm, he's Polt.
Played an excellent series so far. Definitely a lot better than a lot of people expected. We saw all the polls. A lot of people saw Rain as an overwhelming favorite here. Wasn't really the case. Polt going up against this man, spawning in the left bottom side, representing my insanity. It is, of course, Rain, the GSL champion of Season 2.
It's an awesome title to have, Ronnie, to be a GSL champion.
Rain has been very consistent when it comes to making it to the final tournaments as well. He was already there in BWC 2012, made it into the top 4. A lot of people felt, including myself, that kind of should have been Rain's year. That was, of course, the Rain that Parting, or the year that Parting was crowned as world champion. Rain in that semi-finals, just barely losing to Creator.
Yeah, and these spawns, though, I'm looking at this, I'm trying to think about how much I like either player's positions. Obviously, it's a very fast drop path from Polt's main, where his production will be, to the natural of Rain. But I think one of the reasons why the map statistics showed that this is actually a lot more even than we might suggest when we talk about late game play with being spread out and all the drops is that Protoss players have gotten pretty good at being aggressive on this map against Terran. So is Rain the type of player to bust up that 2-base Colossus push that we've actually seen a lot of Protoss players have success with?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Nate. With these positions, I think 2-base Colossus with Blink Stalkers, though, I would do it with Blink, I think is excellent. Then again, how many Protosses haven't we seen try to pull that build off against Polt? Think of Harstem. Harstem tried it like 4 times in a row, I think, against Polt.
He almost broke him, too. Once or twice. Maybe.
Almost. Let's give it to Kev.
It felt like a sturdy almost.
Yeah, I think Harsem in a joking mood wouldn't really call it close. But, you know, Polt is in general pretty good in dismantling builds like that. Then again, Rain is Rain. Maybe he can do something.
Hasn't Polt always been the guy that we talk about just being so hard to kill, right? Yeah. He's one of the very few players that you look at and you're like, if he's way behind, he actually somehow almost always manages to find a way to at least break even if he loses. Whereas as good as someone like Innovation or Maru is, if they're playing against someone of equal skill and they're behind, you don't really feel like they've got that same magic that someone like Polt has. And that's why Polt is here.
Let's see what the tech building is going to be for Rain. Is it going to be Twilight, Stargate, or Robo? I'm not expecting a Robo on Iron Fortress unless he wants to go for a Colossus all-in. It could be an Oracle. It could also be Blink Stalkers very quickly, you know, and maybe try to do something crazy. Instead of making the usual 5, 6, 7 Blink Stalkers, maybe he makes a lot more. Maybe he just tries to win.
I like the path of this probe, by the way. Rain's going to be able to slip straight into his base. He went around the bottom carriage of the map.
Okay, so now he can choose, and now I would choose a robotics facility. After seeing Rex number 2 and 3, I'd go for a Robo.
He knows. He knows what's up. And as this Reaper continues to dance around, he doesn't see any tech just yet. He would love to watch a robotics facility start, or at least whatever the tech choice may be.
Yeah, that's always the downside as a Protoss. Well, it's going to be a Twilight, though. Twilight against a 3-Rex opening. So Rain has multiple choices now with this tech route that he's just chosen. He can just make a couple of defensive units and then still go for a 2-base Colossus push. It could be Dark Shrine, but I find that very unlikely, even though it's not horrible. But it could also just be, you know, I'm going to make way more gateways than you expect. I'm going to open up with 6 or 7 gates, just defend the first push of Polt. You know, the moment that they open up with 3-Rex, they often commit. And if you send a bunch of buy units across the map, you sacrifice it against a few Stalkers and Photon Overcharge, and you don't kill a whole lot, then the counterattack is going to be deadly. This could actually be a 5 or 6 gateway opening for Rain.
It's funny for me to think about because in the time where builds like this were crushing and killing every single Terran player out there, Polt was actually the guy who was still able to take big wins in tournaments like Intel Extreme Masters Cologne. So I'm very interested to see how he responds to this, and if Rain is able to make this work, I'd be pretty impressed.
I mean, we're not sure yet if Rain really commits to it. And there goes the Robo, actually, so he doesn't. But I find this a very risky opening by Rain, because you make a Gateway, you make a Twilight, and you make a Robo, while you're playing against 3-Racks. So the moment that Stim finishes up, if Polt just stims forward and just tries to kill whatever he can, I think he has way more DPS, and I think he can do quite a bit of damage. If you reduce the Stalker count, if you can pick off, you know, a bunch of probes, I think it's already good enough for you.
Yeah, it's one of those times where we've also, you know, haven't we seen it where a Protoss has this Mothership Core loaded out of position. If that gets sniped and they have all those Marines, then the game's just over, right? So the Robo facility is going to finish soon. Blink will be done reasonably soon as well, but there's no power units out yet for Rain.
I expected that from Todd and not from you, Nate. The Ruddy Mothership Core?
I didn't see it was right. We'll call it the Todd Mothership Core.
Oh, there are Mothership Cores in Heroes?
No, it'd be a little break the game, Kevin.
Robotics Bay going down as the first observer is about to pop for Rain. He's getting those gateways over there in the natural, that's fine. It's a little bit risky as well, because imagine if they would get on power. Like, Rain is surprisingly ballsy with all his, you know, with the opening he went for. It's a lot of tech.
I like it, though. I mean, if you can make it work, then this could be the whole reason why he wins. I think if he goes for a middle-of-the-road build against a build like this from Polt, I think Polt, you know, he has that position where because Rain played too defensively or too cautiously that he just can't win. He's just too far behind.
The very useful thing here for Rain is that he has 5 Stalkers out on the map, and well, he had them actually on Polt's side of the map, and I would love to just see him keep him there. I'm not sure why he's bringing them home, because he has a lot of Stalkers now. I just kind of feel if you're worried about bioaggression, these Stalkers, you know, they should be here right now because they could already start being annoying. Get a couple shots, blink back. Get a couple of shots. Yep, beta stim, get a couple shots, go back. And I actually think that he gives a little bit of free, you know, space to move over here to Polt, which wasn't really necessary. Goes up to 3 bases here before the first boss is even out. You saw Zest do this early today as well against
You definitely, as a Terran player, if you're Polt, you really want to kill that 3rd base. That's what this push is supposed to do, especially when you open up with 3 barracks. Your whole entire goal is you run in, you get that 3rd base cancellation, then you take your 3rd and you're just a happy boy. But right now, if Rain keeps this pressure up, this is actually really nice for him because he gets his third against a Polt who's actually playing 2 base.
Picks off a Marauder, the other Marauder very low on HP. The nice vision while killing this Marine. Could wipe in 1 unit over here to kill this Marine. I think eventually he will. He just wants to make sure he doesn't end up losing that unit immediately. Where are the observers of Rain? That's what I really... Okay, they're both right now. They're both over here. He really has to get some vision, let's say at 6 o'clock position of the minimap to make sure that if drops fly towards his natural, that he starts seeing them come.
drops fly into his base. That's a very important thing to worry about. I mean, his observer sees most of the meat here is heading towards that 3rd base, so that's the benefit of having observers out. And that's just another credit to Rain. That one Marine actually killed Pylon.
A little bit surprised at it. Rain didn't want to save it. He said it doesn't want to be saved, don't save it.
Sometimes you just have to let go of the things that you love.
You let it go, Nate. Alright, plenty of Stalkers and 2 Sentries and a Colossus over here on top of the ramp. Blinks forward, gets the medevac immediately, and I love seeing that, Nate. This is something that I really felt that Zez dropped the ball a little bit against Innovation. Multiple times. He had 7, 8, 9 Stalkers just shooting at a bunch of bio units while they were being healed, and it felt like all that damage, you know, was neglected. It didn't really do anything. Yeah, it was all nullified. And Rain immediately blinks forward, picks up a medevac. It's an expensive unit, and it decreases the ability of those units to stick around. So, love seeing that.
Yeah, and it's going to delay Polt's capabilities for going into Vikings if he ever so chooses to do that. And now we have that big Colossus push. This is a scary force from the Protoss player.
Yeah, like he's on 3 bases, Nate, but he didn't build probes. He only has 48 workers.
This spread from Polt, though, if he walks into this could actually be pretty deadly. He can hit him from 2 sides right now.
Yep, well, he gets the
he's pulling the SCVs too defensively. I think Rain needs to back off here.
Yeah, Rain doesn't see this army yet from the north side. He could drop force fields behind his army, though. He needs to drop force fields at
he needs to block this off because Polt's army's hitting him from the east and the west in this position. The Colossi have died, and just Gateway units alone are not going to be enough to stimmy this army.
Nope, he doesn't have charge either, so he's going to end up losing quite a few Zealot stocks. Will try to buy a little bit of time, but another mistake there by Rain. Just ends up losing 2 Colossus for almost nothing. And Polt smells blood in the water. Time Warp does go down for Rain as one of his Colossus will arrive. But on the Zealot side, and that blink there. Okay,
Stalkers from the right side actually committing, manages to grab a full medevac. So suddenly, Rain actually manages to grab something of this, but still a pretty dangerous position to be in.
Yes.
I didn't even see that warping on the right side. He jumps to the right side, gets 2 more medevacs.
And he can get the other one as well. Maybe. No, blinks are cool.
Well,
okay.
So this just swung real fast.
Yeah. 55 supply against 46. This time there is no flank potential anymore for Polt. Polt probably realizing that he overcommitted a little bit. Well, this base is super dead, and I think Polt does it as well. He's going to pull the SCVs again. He's going to deny the pylon. That's a really good start, because Rain can actually reinforce his army right now. It's just 1 Colossus, but 1 Colossus does do a lot of damage.
Yeah, there's the time warp. He got the 3rd command center down, so he just needs to try to save as much of this army as he can. Yeah, move the Colossus down, blink the Stalkers back.
Knock down the cooling tower?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
That was intense. The last 2 minutes of this game, things got crazy.
With everything on the line, Rain has to be careful. He's right-clicking, a couple units are splitting up. He needs a pylon. What is the Colossus doing?
Colossus, where are you going?
He's a little indecisive.
Don't leave us.
Okay, he's going to end up losing 1 more pylon. So Rain is realizing this is becoming a low-economy game, so Blink Stalkers can reign supreme, because every unit you pick up in scenarios like this is phenomenal. Rain also suddenly realized, like, hey, I still got this Nexus over here. That's true. So if I ever mine out my main base, I can transfer workers. It's transitional, as Dario likes to call it.
The transitional 3rd base. This game has actually just gotten so crazy. These Stalkers are still sharking around the map. That lonely Colossus is still treading its way.
Most important, though, he has 2 Colossus at home. Is that Colossus actually in the middle of the map?
Yeah, it's in the middle of the map.
Yeah. Okay, that's
the scouting giraffe is what it is.
Yep. Well, he has 2 Colossus at home as well. He has 1 more on the way. Colossus count quite high. There are a couple, 3 Colossus over here.
There's so much here. Rain takes a massive supply lead as he chunks out even more Marauders. This could be his chance to move on to the round of 8. This Terran army from Polt is running, screaming, and there's nowhere to go. The Stalkers blink forward. They're going to pick up even more of these medevacs, dropping 1, 2, 3 destroyed as Polt desperately tries to run away. But I think Rain's going to knock him out here and advance, eliminating Polt from the global finals here in the World Championship Series.
He gets all the medevacs, he gets all the Marauders, and I think you're spot on over there, Nate. Polt probably very sad, realized that after the first push he was in a great position. He killed the Colossus.
That Stalker warping on the right side was
sick.
Top 3 warping this year, man. That was phenomenal decision making from Rain in the face of danger to get aggressive without any Colossi and secure victory. GG, Rain advances.
Wow, incredibly close series. Very, very close. Polt put up one hell of a fight. I loved it, man. I loved everything about this series. This is just a great Starcraft series, Nate. Very back and forth. Polt really showing us that it doesn't matter where he lives. He can always compete with these guys, even though today, unfortunately for him, it wasn't enough. But he gave the GSL champ of Season 2 one hell of a run for his money.
Honestly, I'm just blown away because when I think of Rain, I think when a lot of people think about Rain, they're like, okay, that turtley Protoss, not necessarily going to throw your fanciest. He's not going to do your parting builds. And then in a series like this where Polt says to him, you're not going to beat me in a macro game, Rain adjusts. And all of the build orders that he busted out just worked so well.
Yep, the one true real game probably felt like Cactus Valley, but I totally agree with you. Rain is, however, standing with Will, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say.
All right, well, in this round of 16 matchup, Polt decided to bleed it out, digging deeper, just to throw it away as Rain moves on to the quarterfinals. Now, backstage as we were watching this match, especially Tilo was saying, well, what's impressive about Polt is that he's not afraid to go late game TVP because he knows he gets how to play it. He's very patient about it. Playing through this game, how did you feel about maybe that being Polt's strength?
저희가 이번 이제 경기를 보면서 저쪽 분석가들이 이제 얘기를 하기는 그래도 최성원 선수가 이 테란 그리고 프로토스 전에서 그냥 후반까지 가는 걸 두려워하지는 않는 것 같다. 왜냐면 후반을 가도 충분히 침착하게 플레이해서 이길 자신이 있기 때문에 그게 좀 대단한 것 같다. 그런 평이 나왔었는데 상대를 할 때는 어떤 생각이 드셨나요?
원래 저런 스타일 하실 줄 알았는데 생각보다 더 꼼꼼하게 하셔가지고 제가 그리고 좀 손이 잘 안 풀려가지고 잘 미흡하게 했던 것 같은데 그냥 잘 하셨던 것 같아 되게. 그래서 그냥 즉흥적으로 그냥 좀 후반 안 가고 초반에 끝내려고 많이 노력했어요.
Yeah, so I expected Polt to, try to drag it out, play a little bit more standard, play the macro game, go to the late game. But it was a lot harder than even I had expected, even though I knew that was coming. He was much more crisp about his play, and therefore I had to adjust a little bit, make sure that we didn't go that far. And that's something, of course, that the commentators just mentioned, that, Rain, you're known to drag it out. You're known to be the patient Protoss. But this time you changed it. I mean, do you feel comfortable being able to do that? Do you think from now on, if you have to, you'd always be able to adapt back and forth between the two styles?
그러면 지금 본인도 이제 정윤준 선수도 그걸 좀 바꿔야겠다 그런 생각이 들었다고 하셨는데 보통은 이제 커뮤니티가 다 경기를 봐도 정윤준 선수가 프로토스전을 하면 무조건 이제 끝까지 후반까지 가겠구나 좀 길게 게임을 하겠구나 그런 그 기대를 하고 보고 있잖아요. 그럼 본인은 그럼 이번에 이렇게 해서 이겼기 때문에 뭐 8강에서든 또 4강 결승까지 간다고 해도 어느 순간에든 침착하게 플레이할 수도 있고 또 공격적으로도 할 수 있겠다 그런 자신감이 있으신가요?
근데 오늘 보니까 후반을 잘 못해가지고 제가 예전만큼의 실력이 아닌 것 같아가지고 좀 걱정스러운데 그 다음 상대가 프로토스라서 그나마 편한 것 같아요. 프로토스라서 그냥 즉흥적으로 하기 쉬워가지고 종족이 좀 후반은 좀 더 다듬어야 될 것 같아요.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because actually in just this last match, I realized I'm not as good anymore in the late game. I don't feel as confident anymore. I think I was a lot sloppier than I usually am. So I'm a little afraid of getting there. Thankfully, my next matchup is going to be a PvP anyway. I think that's an easier matchup to adapt very quickly during the game. So I'm not as worried. Hopefully that will give me a little bit of a buffer. Ladies and gentlemen, Rain moving on to the quarterfinals in the round of 8 here at BlizzCon 2015.
Hello and welcome back here to the couch. Tilo in control and Todd. A fantastic series between the two of them. And it reminds me of the last time they played on a big stage in a close series. I think maybe you cast it, I'm not too sure. My memory passes for me.
I've casted so many games, Sean, that...
they all just blur together.
They blur together. I've heard that line before. Is it the Intellitree Masters in Cologne, the one that they played in the semi-finals, I think it was. And it was a great series. And likewise, this one was too, Todd.
Yeah, it was pretty intense, actually. I really like what Rain said in an interview, where he said that he felt very rusty in the late game, and he wasn't as good as he used to be, so it was time to mix in some different builds, and that's probably one of the very good adjustments that he made over time, where I think he would have just tried to play straight up and longer games the whole way. It was definitely always going to be hard. So it's cool to see him adjust like this because he's been known to be one of those players to play overly passive and to always try to play the macro game and never cheese.
Yeah, I thought this was just a good game by both these players. The first one to go to the 5th game, so that was intense in and of itself. And I could kind of feel a lot of us, again, I'll take responsibility as well. Like, I voted for Rain, but Polt looked really impressive, and I was like, here we go again. I discounted Polt, and he's going to make me look silly for it.
Yep.
Played a great series, but I thought it was cool, too, to Todd's point, that Rain kind of buckled it down and, like, really kind of adjusted because it was looking shaky a couple of those times, and a lot of Protoss, even the long game on Cactus Valley, a lot of Protoss would have quit a lot earlier than that, but he held on, defended between the 4 and 5 bases, and actually made it kind of a game of it. It was really nice.
Why do you guys keep mentioning the prediction? I really think that at this point it brings nothing to the show, so we need to remove it.
I actually think as time goes on, it's becoming more
I think
important.
it's funny. I personally think it's
It's
very funny,
rising
especially
up.
the way that you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm starting to like get a little bit on the level of Todd's, but I'm man enough to say predictions are still fun, even though I'm losing. Sometimes losing can also be fun, Todd.
Yeah, you know all about it. That's why you're not playing at the
Whoa, guys. Take it to Legacy of the Void just a week or so, all right?
Yeah, you guys can play a couple 1v1s there.
I don't think Heroes of the Storm is 1v1.
It's true.
All right, let's take a look
if
at
it
the
was,
game.
you certainly lose.
Let's take a look at the game then. Let's jump into a couple of moments from this series. Tilo, would you like to talk us through a couple of these?
Well, actually, it's interesting because we were mentioning Polt playing fantastically in the late game, and he's just so good at picking engagements again and again.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Rain was winning these early games, like in the second game here, which was a very strange game by Polt. He had like 3 proxy barracks in the north, and once again in a longer game, he's just being so patient, waiting until he can. Rain was out of position, takes the fight, and kind of stomps him.
At this moment right here, guys, backstage, a lot of the casters were getting up and starting to walk towards the couch because like, all right, it's completely over.
I mean, look at the supply.
This game goes on another 10, 12 minutes or so, and Rain kind of makes a challenge of it. But I kind of want to go back to that just real quick. We're kind of going through the games, and this is going to be weird because we're not at that game. But the 6 barracks, 2 base versus the Void Ray all-in was so cool on paper because it looks like Polt is making the perfect read. He's like, oh, I'm facing Stargate. I'll show up with a bunch of bio. It'll rock his socks. But it's actually like, with force fields, if Rain gets into like 2 pivotal positions at that choke, but then up that ramp, he just absolutely shuts it down, and Rain got to both those pivotal points so
The only
fast.
way this does a lot, I guess, is if Rain plays really greedy and takes a lot and has nothing, but he was doing the opposite.
I know, that's what was kind of funny about it, because we were all like, oh, cool, really weird by Polt, we've never seen this, but he's doing it against a guy that uniquely does not take the big risk.
I feel it was a prepared build that just went wrong. Like, he thought 100% Rain is going to play a specific build. That didn't happen, and then he just looks very silly.
And I think that's a little bit of an example of kind of what went wrong in this series for Polt, too, because, like, at the very beginning of these clips, the big one we watched is, like, 6 medevacs dropping on the Protoss army with Polt hitting that 3rd base at the same time. That's not really Polt-like. Polt's kind of the kind of guy that'll use those medevacs to drop the main while the 3rd's being harassed, but make you choose between the 2 and pick you apart that way. I feel like when Polt gets mustered up and is having the one big fight, that's when he's kind of at his weakest. Like, obviously, he can get it done.
I mean, this is a very nervous moment, right, in the last game here, Todd. This could have gone either way, and it did continue to go either way. I think we may get a clip of the Stalker warp-in that Roddy kept on going on about, and rightfully so.
It looked for a moment here, actually, that like Polt was doing well.
He was in a good spot. He just overcommitted here, I think. If he just goes back and fights on his side, because there's no workers on the 3rd base for Rain.
I think the warp-ins now, right?
Yeah.
This is where they come from the right-hand side.
The backside. And that's what's so cool about this, too, is that with Blink Stalkers, if you overextend, well, good night. That's it, because they're able to run you down like
it's like the speedlings of Protoss in TVP.
And that's why that
can shoot Medivacs.
They can shoot
so
Medivacs.
they're both Mutalisks and Zerglings at the same time.
That's a very creative analysis.
That's actually... Yeah, exactly, Todd. He's on a different plane over here. They're Mutalisks, they're Zerglings.
But that last game was winnable for Polt, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about the series. Is I felt like it was that game, but also in other games as well. There's little examples where Polt makes a couple of decisions differently against his opponent, and all of a sudden it's Polt that wins this series. And that's ultimately what you're looking for in a series between 2 champions like this. Like, Rain makes it past this, but it was a great series. We got a good show.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. It is time to prepare ourselves for the next game, which we're all very excited to be bringing you. It's going to be Parting versus SOS. Do make sure to hashtag WCS and join in on the conversations. There's been a lot of them throughout the day, and I'm sure there's...